9,
10.
And we are back. So everyone, as we stated, we have a very special guest here. I was fortunate enough to meet this young woman, and as you heard, I was at the PVO Pioneers brunch with my homies. Shout out to Nas, Chi, and Dio. And I believe Nas reached out to you. He speaks very highly of this guest that we have.
Nice.
And he's like, yo, we need somebody to curate and facilitate the conversation because, the whole premise was that they were honoring women and women pioneers in terms of like being supporters of their brand and also just being pioneers in the space that they're in. And so they really wanted to intentionally take a back seat and listen more, which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
And so this lovely young lady stood up and tried to reel in a group of outspoken women from all different backgrounds as we chatted and drank and got a little, a little turned up a little bit, but you really held the fort down very well. And I was really interested in all of the work that you do outside of what you were doing at PVO. So again, I like for folks to introduce themselves. I want to make sure that that you're able to just honor yourself and speak life into yourself as you see fit. So without further ado, we are here with our girl, Dani. I ain't going to give you a thumb your government.
It's all good. It's all good.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Antoinette.
Of course.
The brunch was amazing. I'm so happy we got to connect. That's how I'm here. That was the purpose of the brunch. But I am Dani. Thank you both for having me tonight. I am the owner and founder of Conveaux, spelled Conveaux, not the traditional spelling, a little different. And Conveaux is a life and relationships wellness service. It is specifically for minority men and women, and I've also added teens recently. And what we do is we provide therapeutic products and services and therapeutic events. If you guys know what therapeutic events are, if you've ever been to therapeutic events.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so therapeutic events are things that we enjoy doing, but you're coming out with a takeaway.
Got it.
So it could be your everyday forums, workshops, mixers and then we have partnership events like we're doing in October. But each time you come to one of our experiences, you're leaving with a takeaway. So you're not just coming to talk. You're not just coming to party. You're not just coming to stare at the person across the room and hope that they speak to you. You are coming to really develop. There's a lot of development and self-awareness going on, but you're having a good time doing it. That's the thing about Conveaux. Conveaux is very unique because we have strategies which allow you to do this self-development, but we make it fun and we make it enjoyable.
So dope.
It's giving duality, which is what we are all about here on Around the Way Curls. So I saw you posted and it caught my eye and I said, wait a minute. Now she got to talk about this. You posted that you were having an event called The Business of Marriage, right? And that was in partnership with who now?
Chase who?
Chasing you down the street or what? Who was it?
JP Morgan Chase.
There you go.
Now.
Talk your shit, queen.
Yes. That was a big one. Yes. JP Morgan Chase. I partnered with them to do The Business of Marriage. And that was actually a long time coming because we had planned that back in 2019.
Okay. 2019. What? And then COVID hit and everything got in the way?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Now, as soon as I hear 2019, it's just derailment after that.
We thought we were going to be, outside doing some things and we were going to hit everybody with The Business of Marriage. And then COVID was like, nah, never mind.
Damn.
Which, you know what? It was actually a good thing because it just helped the entire event transform into something that I couldn't even imagine. Like the way it was planned originally is not what it ended up being. It was 10 times better than what we originally planned. So everything happens for a reason.
Got it. So I want us all to talk about the business of marriage. Now, Dani, you're married.
No,
correct?
no, not yet.
You're not? I thought you were.
Engaged. No,
I'm engaged. I just sped it up, child. Well, you basically did.
Hey, that's okay.
You did. All right. Shanti's partnered and I am single. So these are great perspectives. So I really wanted to talk about the business of marriage. And so I would like to first and foremost say that I am someone, probably because I'm single, that I'm always approaching it in this like, you have to marry for love and emotional support and spiritual
Not Dani's face.
fulfillment.
If you're on Patreon, I wish you could have saw that. Just this one girl.
That's when we need to break the cycles.
She said, "Nah, okay, well, we'll see. We'll see what I get out of this." But I'm that person. It's like, oh, finances, and we'll get into why a little bit later. Okay. But I'm curious to know, in my research for this, in many ways, marriage is like a business arrangement, apparently. So like, if you think about it, two people, they get a license, they make an agreement, and then they pool their resources together towards a common goal. Yeah. And then if you have children, it's like these little kind of businesses that you're spitting off and trying to like nurture, and you're responsible for it. Absolutely. So I want to hear from you. What does the business of marriage mean? What does that encapsulate?
It's interesting because it was a intentional play on words, because with that event and with that topic, we wanted it to promote exactly what it sounded like, the business, like what you thought it was. Like, are we talking about marriage being a business? Are we talking about what is the business of being married? Like I purposely titled it like that so that it could be like that triggering thought process. And honestly, that's one of the main things I wanted people to think about. Like, why do you want to be married? That was one of the main questions of that topic. Like, why do you want to be married? Do you want to be married for something like what Antoinette said? I want to do these social media goals type love and,
I didn't say it was going to be on social media. I ain't say all that now.
Or do you want to be married because you got things to do and legacies to create? And you understand that, if love is not there at first, maybe eventually it'll come, maybe not. But regardless, you guys are going to get it done. So that was mainly like what that topic in the event was supposed to trigger when people first saw the title. It was supposed to trigger like those ongoing thoughts in conversation around what you believe marriage to be when it comes to business too.
Got it. So our beloved Dr. Umar, he says that marriage is an economic contract, right? And he was talking about that in terms of why he's so against interracial marriage, which is that video clip cracks me up every time I see it, but I digress. So I started to think about this economic contract and I was like, okay, I guess for me in thinking about it, I was like, oh, marriage just feels really tied into, when I approach it from an economic standpoint, it feels tied to status. But then I thought about it. I was like, well, you do get tax breaks. And I was like, well, dual income would be nice. I could possibly invest in other things if I had help. And then you tie on, like, I have a friend who's, how do I say this? Her parents are married. One parent works, one parent has a pension, and that pension is basically what sustains them, but also he's able to keep his insurance. And so that's how the wife is able to have care, So even if she didn't have that marriage, if that was just his partner, she wouldn't be able to be on his health insurance, right? Then I started thinking about prenups, right? And I'm like, wow, like understanding who gets what, how much money you get per kid, how much money you get per year. Like, how do we quantify that and place numerical value on it? And it just kind of started blowing my mind. So let me take some steps back. And I want to ask all three of us, what are or what would be our approach when it comes to finances in marriage. What does that look like?
Mm.
And I don't want you to go first because I feel like you kind of have more experience. So I want Shanti, you go first. What would that look like?
I think I would want to know what the person's P&Ls are. What are your expenses each month? How much money, if we're going to get married, like if we're going to do this, what are your expenses? How much debt do you have? What's your goal? What's your credit score? And then decide how we're going to handle all of our finances. Are we going half-seas? What happens if I get sick and I'm disabled? What's the plan then? What happens if
what you would want it to be, not what you would ask them, not what you're.
Oh, what I would
not
want
how
it
you
to
would
be.
have the conversation.
I would want that kind of
ideal?
clarity, and then I can make a decision. I don't know if I can make decisions unless I know like what's going on with your man.
Well, I mean, like, do you want to go halvesies?
Not necessarily. I think like if we were to purchase a home, possibly. I think it depends on who's making a shit ton of money. Like if he's making like triple what I'm making, then there's like equality. There's like equality that I think should be recognized. If I'm making triple what he's making, and I'm like, and I want to live a certain standard of life and expect him to, he ain't got it. So, all right, I'm going to cover half of that, but then it's my asset. Maybe, I don't know, like, but I would want equality. I would want my own money. I would want him to maybe have his own money, and then we share like operational expenses. What are the food that comes in, mortgage, expense, kids stuff, clothing.
Yeah, and you have a daughter right now, so your partner when you marry them, and her father is in her life, but when you marry whoever you marry, if you get married, ideally they would also be responsible financially for your child.
The operational costs, but not for like, maybe not for her tuition because she has a father that can pay for the tuition. But like, yeah, she's here. We're making food for her, so yeah, you gotta pay for the bed, you gotta pay for the lights, but like shelter, but maybe not. Yeah, maybe not her tuition. Maybe college is something that has to be discussed. Camps, like that's not necessarily his responsibility. I don't know. That's a tricky one. But
interesting, right?
But then it comes down to like, what if something happens to me? You're just gonna watch me fold? That ain't. I don't know. That's where it gets. I don't know. So like, I don't know.
Right. So I was thinking about this, and I have to be honest. I feel like a lot of women and men, but women mostly to me, they sound insane when they start talking about the requirements they have around money in relationships. And maybe that's deeply rooted in me not seeing a woman, I guess, taken care of financially in a particular way coming up.
Right.
And I acknowledge that, but some of it just feels like nuts. Some of it feels like, girl, you really think that this person's supposed to pay for your nails, get this, get that, like everything? You're not supposed to pay for anything? So that kind of blows my mind. Like the upkeep expenses blows my mind because I'm like, why is that his role? And I feel like maybe it's also because certain voices are amplified in the space. Like when you see stuff online, and it's like, oh, this man just bought this iced out necklace, and I'm like, what? Like, do you have land? You know, like I'm just always thinking about priorities. But I have to be honest and say, as much as I want help, right, and I really want partnership, I would be really uncomfortable in a situation where I relied on a partner to finance my lifestyle. Like if I wound up with someone who made way more money than me, right? I would, be nervous because it's like, okay, if something happens to us, I crumble. Like I can't pay the bills. I can't hold us down. and that makes me really nervous because one, that puts a certain amount of pressure on him to be this protector, provider, and that's not quite the energy that I'm looking for in a partner or in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, I think I would probably feel a bit inadequate. I will also, I would have a lot of difficulty relinquishing that kind of control around my own shelter and safety and stability of like, whoa, if something happens to you, I'm not okay. Like I can't sustain us. And so I thought about that. And I know that a lot of people will dream about this like knight in shining armor, like this prince will come and sweep you off your feet. But that comes with a whole set of expectations that makes me really uncomfortable. Ideally for me, I would love to step into a relationship where I have mine, just like Shanti says, you have yours. It's ours. And then we also have joint. Like I'm not the person, as much as I want to be able to take care of myself, and I do take care of myself. If you need it, of course, we're married, right? I fuck around and do that dumb shit now, and I'm just trying to date. So, so to be clear, it's not that I'm, like withholding funds or anything like that. It's more, I'm more concerned around the roles, especially the gender roles. And I think this would be a really interesting conversation to have with someone I always say this, in same-sex relationships. And I reached out to a couple people who I know about this, and they said that even within the LGBTQIA community, there are still the femmes, the this, the that, and they take on those roles oftentimes within those relationships, like whatever I guess you're more geared toward, it's still in that kind of viewpoint of man and woman and those roles, which kind of blew my mind a little bit, but I only talked to like 2 people. So, but yeah, I don't know. I get uncomfortable when people pick up the check. Like I went on a date, I guess semi-recently, and we went to 2 spots. And the first spot he paid, and then I made sure the second spot I paid. And he was looking at me like I was a weirdo a little bit, but I just was like, I felt inclined to do it because it's like, well, you don't know me. You don't owe me anything. And we'll get into that later too, because dating and marriage is different. But what is your ideal view, Dani? And what is your advice since you do this?
I always say whatever works best for you as a couple. So my thing is always, your lives change when you get together. It's no more me, it's a we thing. So for me, it has to be teamwork. Like I've never been kind of like you two. I've never been the person that look for someone to do 100% because that's always my thought is future planning. Like, what am I going to do if things go left? Mm-hmm. Can I maintain? Can I get back on my feet? Do I have some, some fluff under me that I've built up by this person? So I've never been that one to want like everything. Even to this day, like even if my partner is like, oh, I can't wait to get this amount of money so that you don't have to do anything. And I'm like, no, I'm still going to do something. I still want the teamwork. For me, the teamwork is big. Like we both need to be all in for me. Like we both need to have our things going on, having our businesses separately and then having one together. Same thing with the kids, taking care of our children together. I came in with children. I didn't come in with the expectation, like, you need to take over now and be the daddy. Like, I didn't come, but I knew that we're sharing a household. So as long as the children are in this household, the things that we both contribute to are for them too. Like, it can't be I'm going to make you a plate and not the kids. And they just sit there looking like, well, I'll wait till mommy get out the bathroom. It's a teamwork thing where we're all putting in. So for me, I feel like financially, that's what works. Having the conversations, and it's tough because I'm a woman and I'm a woman that likes things. I like things. I like to spend. I like shiny things. I like to eat out. So having that financial conversation was tough, but it's important. Like you have to, you can't circle around it. You can't tiptoe around it. So like
What's
being
the financial conversation?
Yeah,
Like,
how
what
did
is
you
the
do it?
conversation?
yeah, like being able to say, like, well, are you going to get a little more responsible with your spending now that it's not just about you anymore?
Mm.
You have both of us to think about, yes, what if something happens, like Shanti said, to one of us, and you've been out here just spending like it's still, party time for you, and now we need your income to hold us both down. So that kind of conversation, like, again, that future planning conversation, like, you got to pull back on your spending habits. You don't need, that extra spongy thingy because it's cute. You like buying things on Amazon, like, cut back on that. And that's conversations me and my partner have had. Like, I love Amazon. And he's like, you don't need extra plates. That's a conversation we had to have. Like, you don't, and I would just be biting my bottom lip, like, he said not to get this. It's the tough conversation and teamwork conversation that we had to have when it came to the financials, the credit, the part that you guys mentioned. I never thought that I would have to, especially coming from a background of strong, Black, independent woman. It didn't even dawn on me that I need to show someone my credit. Like, besides someone that I was trying to get a loan from, but like a partner is like, why are you in my business? Like, my credit. But I'm like, wow, I really have to, like, dang, I have to do this. So luckily it was somebody that was very understanding and wanted to help me, do better for myself too. But we had to have that sit down. I had to open up that Credit Karma app, and I had to hand the phone over and turn my face. Like, we had to do that. So
it feels so deeply connected to honesty and trust. Like, they're not separate at all. Maybe people feel like they're separate things because it's money, but like, it's not.
People don't wait. Like, even if you're dating, Antoinette said, like, she starts to do those things now, that's actually perfectly fine. Because even if you're dating and you see the potential in the person, like, okay, I think I might want to take this next step, you can start having little small financial talks. Like, I take 5 vacations a year. Like, if just an example, you guys are talking, and that person, you never know what will come out of it. They might be like, whoa, 5? Isn't that a little expensive? And you get, like, you get some insight on how they feel about something like that. Whereas you might meet another person that's like, oh, it's lit. Let's try to do 6 to 7. Like, so those are the conversations that need to be had. And I tell people, like, don't wait until you think it's the person that you want to marry. And don't wait until you're about to get married. You could be dating for 2 and 3 years, trying to tiptoe around those difficult conversations. And then when you go to do something big, like buy a house or get married, a lot hits the fan. Like, it gets real ugly then, and you don't want to have to, like, be in a place where you guys feel like you can't move forward. So I always say, don't wait. Have it sooner than later, those conversations, even in the dating stage.
Some considerations, right? And this makes me so uncomfortable because it feels like you're sizing someone up, in terms of their actual value. Capitalism. We always circle back to this shit. But like, some of the things that folks consider that I found on the interwebs was like, what's your tax bracket? How much debt do you have? How many dependents do you have? What are your assets? What's your credit score?
Wow.
What's your savings in your 401k? What's your retirement plan? And then one that comes to mind for me that I didn't see is like, what is your relationship with money? Do you understand how money actually works? That's my main thing. Is like, if I feel like you're working towards something, but you understand money, you know how to manage your money, like, I have so much more respect for that than somebody who's balling out and they're just spending frivolously. Again, it's like, do you own land? Is any of your money making money? Like, that's where I go is immediately. But I couldn't imagine sitting down with somebody. I guess I could, but not in the beginning of like being in the dating phase. 4 months in, you're enjoying each other's company, and then you're like, so how much debt do you have? Like, what? It's definitely like, you got to check off my boxes. And I hate putting people in those boxes, but it is important.
What about the couples that don't? I'm sorry. Go ahead if you want to respond.
No, if you want to, I mean, I saw your face when I was saying that. You're like, wow. But like, are you having those conversations, Shanti?
Oh.
All of that?
She said all that?
To an extent. To an extent. Because, I mean, once you're with somebody for 4 to 5 years, it's like, I know what the struggle is. You see my struggle. Like, we see the patterns. We see, I don't know the numbers, but I at least have a deep sense of what your relationship to money is. Okay. And like, you see what the things are. I grew up in a household where my mom got the house is in her name. I know so many women who they're buying houses and it's in their name, and they're not necessarily, they happen to be married at that time, but a lot of women are making the decision to be like, I still want to be with him. He got his thing over here. We already talked about where we're at. He got his little recovery to do. I'm a teamwork to help him with his recovery, but I'm in a place that I'm going to buy this house and I'm going to make sure my finances are at a place that if he leaves, if he fumbles, I'm still going to be able to afford to keep this house. Mm-hmm. Do you think that causes conflict in a relationship, or do you think if there's that clarity that's okay as well?
Yeah, if the conversation is not had around it, like you said, if there's no clarity around it, it could cause conflict because someone might feel like you're just looking out for yourself. But if you have the right conversation and the right relationship with your partner, they'll get it. They'll get it. Like, if something happens to me, she wants to make sure she's good. Or if something happens to her, he wants to make sure he's good. And it's a lot of relationships that they actually prefer to operate that way. Because you never want the other person to be without.
I wonder though if there's resentment of like, oh, you got one foot out the door and one foot out the other, kind of. Which makes for me business, fuck your feelings. Like, this is business. Fuck your feelings. I love you to death. I got your back, but also
I feel like that
I'm gonna be able to cover my rent. I'm gonna be able to cover my daughter's tuition,
But how is it fuck your feelings in a marriage? That's what, like, if I was marrying somebody, right, and they said my name wasn't going on a house, I'd be like, what? What? On the house? Like, what are you even saying? I would never think to get a house and not put my partner's name on it. I mean, maybe
it's your bread.
Here's the thing. Maybe it's revealing something to me. Is it I'm not interested in being with somebody where I got to pay for the whole house, baby? I don't know. But even still, like, I guess if it was all of my money, I tell you, I know that the house that I grew up in, that down payment came from mama. She she saved all her money for that. And my father's name was on it. But he, contributed. I don't know what they worked out, but I'm sure it wasn't even a thought. I'm thinking about, again, a couple that I know. She could not afford to stay in the house that they currently live in if something happened to her husband, not he leaving, but like if there was any death or anything like that. She couldn't afford to stay there. And so he's older. And so if he does pass, that's like her name needs to be on the home. It's her home, like she has to get the home so she can like sell it. And so I'm having all of these conversations as well with parents and with just older folks on assets, on what happens when and if something happens to them. And it's super financial. And then especially when you're dealing with marriages where folks have remarried or have children that they don't, they didn't create together. Then you have to navigate, well, I paid for this house. I have 2 kids of my own. You're my wife. I'm going to put the house in your name. But if something happens to you, that needs to pass down to my kids, and your kids can get some, but my kids can't be left out. Like, it's so complicated. And I can completely understand that, because it's like, I paid for this house. Those are my kids. I'm going to hold you down, but your kids aren't my kids. And my kids got grandkids. It's just, it's tricky. It's tricky. That's why you got to have your own shit. I'm telling you.
No, you gotta write it out on paper. It has to be talked out on paper. You have to figure that all out.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach that conversation, Dani? First, what is the care?
Advisor first. Like you definitely, once you get to that point, you definitely need a financial advisor, because a good one is going to tell you like the best way to go about that, especially when it comes to assets and property. You'd be surprised how many couples prefer, and I just saw a post on this recently, to not put both of their names on the mortgage.
Wow.
Did they say why?
Why?
Because there's a method to the madness when it comes to that financially. Again, the business aspect of it. It's like a divide and conquer, even in your marriage, even in your relationship. And they had a good graphic that went along with it too on the post. And I'm like, wow, I bet you a lot of people, the title of the post was "Do not get married before you buy a house." Like, don't do
see that.
Yeah. So it was, I guess, but it said, don't do that first. Like, buy your houses separately first, and then get married. And both of your names don't have. So they had like a whole strategy, and some people prefer that. Again, it has to be a conversation, because I know many people that they're like, no, my name needs to be there. I need to see my name there. If anything happens, we both have some kind of benefit to this property, to these assets. And if you both agree, then you're good. But if you don't, you need someone. You need a professional to let you know whether or not you're being rational. And a financial advisor should be involved. Even, again, in my partnership, that was one of the things we did when we were thinking about life insurance. We did our own research. But we were like, okay, we're going to get the person in and do the counseling with us, sit down. And that's how we came to our decision. We sat down with the financial advisor. They told us what was best, what made the most sense, even down to who the beneficiaries were.
Got it.
Had we not had that, extra guidance, then I don't know how soon we could have come to an agreement. So it helped. I think that's something I would advise people. If you can't come to an agreement right away, unless you just both have it figured out, like you've been doing your planning before and you're like, okay, we're good, we're going to do this, get somebody involved.
That's great advice. So, Chanti, do you have anything to follow up? Because I'm about to derail it a little bit. All right. So when I look at social media specifically, and I touched on this earlier, and I'm like deeply disheartened by, I think, how folks express love to one another. And I think that it is like really deeply rooted in gifts, and like gifts that really don't mean anything to the partner, but more about like, I just got to show off, our status or my status. And it's a lot of bling, and it's a lot of like, oh, I'm going to put X amount of flowers all over the hotel room that somebody got to fucking clean up. I'm going to spend $1 million on balloons. That's just, it's just like, what? So I was thinking about it, and I was like, what is this rooted in? Is it rooted in our ego? Or is it rooted in, and I'm sure it is, or is it kind of rooted in like, I'm going to show you my value so you know what I could offer you so that you choose me. And it made me think about dowries. And so for folks that don't know, like dowries are like sets of assets, money, material goods, real estate, right? That traditionally a bride's family will gift a groom. This is way back in the day. And it still happens now. It still happens.
No, it's still,
when the two are wed. And the purpose of a dowry is basically, first, it gives the bride and groom the money and goods that they'll need to build a home together, a life together. And then second, like the loss of the dowry gives the bride some manner of protection, like in cases of where her husband might become abusive or leave her or whatever the case is. And I thought it was interesting. Traditionally, dowries are conditional. So like, if it doesn't work, they take it back. And I didn't know that grooms were liable to pay the dowry back if they did not stay together. And then the opposite of the dowry is also like the bride price, right? Which by the name, you can pretty much tell what that is. And so that's where the the groom rather will pay the bride's family in order to secure her hand in marriage. And so now I see less of the dowries, right? And now I see more of like, you gotta trick in order to get me. And it's rooted in the hot girl summer. It's rooted in all this like city girls, we up. It's very much that. And it upsets me. And I feel deeply like invested in tearing that down. But then I had to ask myself, like, do we have like modern day bride prices? Like even in dating, even if it's not a price, like when we go on a date, it's like, he better pay for me if he want to take me out, if he want to get to know me. I'm trying to understand what the difference is. In an engagement ring, how big is the ring? That's proof of the kind of life you'll have, right? And it's not in my mind, but traditionally it is. How big can the wedding be? How big can the cake be? How extravagant is everything? It's proof of like how he'll quote unquote provide. So just curious to know your thoughts on that.
That's all external validation. That's mainly what majority of that is rooted in. If no one could see any of that stuff, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. Like most women who want really big rings or the shiniest ring, it's not because that's what she really wants. Like she didn't just wake up and was like, I want the shiniest ring. It's embedded. It's because you saw it, because you had to have a bigger ring than someone else. You have to have a bigger house. It has to look like your partner is spoiling you more than the next chick who posted. The first thing they want to run and do is show everybody how much they're being loved. And we're learning more and more from social media that a lot of that is smoke and mirrors, because one minute we see people all happy and getting these things and, you know, being spoiled and with the city girl life, and then they're not together. The next minute, you know, there's some kind of blow up, and we realize it was all for show. But I think that the majority of that is not an individual thing. It's not something that the person actually, if we take a step back and really think to ourselves, like, is this what I want? Or do I want this person? Or do I just want to seem like my partner is loving me because they're giving me material things, and that's what love means to me? A lot of us don't even know what love truly means to us. Like we can't.
Oh shit.
So I think it's all external. I want to say, if I had to put like a percentage on it, I would say like 98%. That's how steep I would go. 98% of that is for external validation. Like I even find myself wrapped in it sometimes. I'm very much a person that could, like, you know, separate myself from all the hoopla and you know, everything going on in social media. But I find myself like what you guys were talking about. If you're not in a relationship yet, then you have people who are like, oh, when are you going to meet someone? If you're not married yet and you're engaged, and like, when are you guys getting married? You know, like you find yourself trying to live up to external expectations. And that's what majority of people are truly, especially now in our generation, that's majority of what's happening, is living up to these external expectations, which could be very, very dangerous. And the reason I say that is because you stray away from like the core, why you're there, why you want to be there, and you start to do everything for everyone else except for you and your partner.
It's like when I see, and I love a wedding. I love a celebration of love, right? But now I will look at a wedding and be calculating the cost in my head, like, oh my God, all this money and resources could have been spent in another way. And again, could be deeply rooted in I'm not used to being celebrated or having lavish parties thrown on my behalf or things like that, or even spending that kind of money on myself. But I guess for the folks that are affected by social media, they do want the wedding, they do want the ring, what advice would you give them in terms of their approach to having those things, but having them within their budget?
That advice, again, that I would give them, it's a conversation to be had. especially with your partner, because you don't want to be in this partnership or get in this partnership and you're aiming really, really high and you're putting that pressure on your partner to aim really, really high. And the next thing you know, it ruins the whole dynamic of the partnership. So it's a conversation that needs to be had. Like, again, the importance. What is the importance? Like, is this truly important to you? Since you were 7 years old, did you want a big, golden, shiny wedding cake that was 4 layers? Like, is that really important to you? Is this something you've always dreamt about? Or is this something like you just feel like you have to have one up on someone else? Like, those difficult conversations, like, they have to be had. Having people, one, that self-reflection. That's what we do at Conveaux. That's why Conveaux has the events that we have, and we have the dialogue that we have at the events, because we want, our people, just in general, our generation, our era, we're getting better with therapy. We are. I'll give us that. We're getting better with therapy. We're getting better with self-care, but we're still a little hesitant to be consistent with work. We're still hesitant to be consistent. And when we're not doing the work, we're not able to see ourselves in a certain light. So with, events and programs like Conveaux, you're able to see like that self-awareness. And what I do with my couples, I say, like, this thing that you want, this lifestyle that you want, is it coming from your true self or is it coming from something external? It's a conversation that needs to be had. When they're at Conveaux events, if they're not going to therapy consistently, they hear it from other people, other perspectives. They hear it from me as the host, as the facilitator, and it triggers a little something in their head. Like, am I doing this for the goals, or am I doing this because this is what I really want? So my advice to them would be like to really sit with yourself, like to sit with yourself and your partner, of course. But, it's going to be some riffraff if you both are on separate pages. But to sit with yourself and just think to yourself, like, is this something I really want? I've never been a fan of a diamond ring, and I wasn't going to become one, just because I see it everywhere and people around me have really big, shiny rocks. I wasn't going to pressure myself into, I needed this. I wanted what I wanted since I had a replica of the ring I wanted as a teenager, and I wasn't straying away from that. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm a rose quartz girl. Like, I love rose quartz.
Aww.
I love that.
And that's every partner I've had has known that I wanted a rose quartz. I wasn't going to let the external pressures of seeing people post their biggest, shiniest rings, or, everything becomes left-handed because you got a big, shiny ring. Like, I wasn't going to let that stray me away. Even when I got engaged, I had friends that were kind of like, oh, that's the ring you wanted? Like, that was how they asked. And I'm like, yes, it is. And I like it. It's pink. I like pink. I wasn't letting them take me away from me being true to myself. Me wanting that was me being true to myself. And again, it's a conversation that needs to be had. Even the type of wedding, the type of lifestyle. I'm not going to do all of these things for someone else's validation. I'm going to be doing them because I want to be true to myself. I feel like a lot of partnerships stray away from that, being true to themselves. I posted it in my story recently. I'm like, how many relationships do you believe are truly based on the people liking one another? Or how many of them are based on looking good on paper? Like, that's what I asked in my story post. And it was the higher percentage was that most people are together because it looks good on paper.
So then let me ask you, when I said what I said at the beginning, why did you make the face that you made?
When you were talking about love?
Yeah, when I was like, I'm one of these people that I want to be filled spiritually. I'm not really thinking about finances. He was like, girl, what the fuck?
Because it's hardly ever that. It's just, it sounds good. That's why I made the face, because it sounds so beautiful. I always say, Disney really messed us up. It messed us up bad because we grew up. Even, of course, some of us have parents and grandparents who have really beautiful relationships if we're that lucky to have witnessed it. And we felt like that was the standard. But people want it to be. But that would also mean doing a lot of the work that a lot of us are straying away from doing. That have what Antoinette was describing, like that love. And it's beautiful. We all want it, but it doesn't always start that way. That's why I made that face, because it doesn't. It starts that way that first 2 or 3 weeks when you meet them, and it's all butterfly-y, and everything is going good. And then once the representative leaves the building,
Wow.
then you get the real deal, and you have, you got to start thinking about, do you want to do that again? Where you're like, oh, I'm just going to look for love and keep doing that again and again and again once things start to get a little rocky? Or do you want to understand that it's not always going to be rainbow and rosies and feel as fluffy as we wanted it to feel or look on social media?
So if I'm hearing you, it's not about the checklist. Don't go into it with your checklist and be like, oh, you got to have this, and this. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to truly love and like your partner, but you also have to have real ass conversations about how the world works and understand that capitalism is a thing, and that we getting together, we got to be able to run the ship, and we got to know what that looks like.
Everything you said is right. Everything you said is right. So Conveaux has an app, and I always tell people the app is not a dating app. I refer to it as an alignment app. So couples use it. Little do we know, sometimes 5 years later, you find out surprises because you never had the conversations that needed to be had 5 years ago. So the alignment app checks your alignment with your partner or your potential partner. Because that is everything you just mentioned is about alignment. So we say with the Conveaux app, alignment is the assignment. That's the one thing we're missing when we're getting in these relationships or these situationships. Like, are we even aligned in all of those areas you just mentioned? Or most of them. May not be 100%, but are we aligned enough to move forward? We go off of butterflies and love, and we
looks and money.
Looks, exactly. And we go off of all of that. You could be with someone who has just as much education as you, just as much money, stability, success, look just as good as you, and the two of you be totally misaligned. Even with all of that, it sounds so far-fetched, but it's absolutely true. And like I said, it's a lot of relationships and marriages out here where people have not done the self-reflection. They said to themselves in the beginning, I want him to have 6 figures. He better have a BMW. He better take me out to eat and pay every single time. They said all of those things, but they never said, I want him to come having already gotten over his mommy issues.
Oh.
They didn't say something like that. I want him to be able to handle his emotions and know how to communicate and respond well in difficult situations. None of that is being said. I want this, and this, all these material things and things that look good on the outside, and nobody's worrying about the inside. So the alignment is what needs to be done. The alignment comes from the inside.
You preaching. Well, here we are. Marriage is a business, honey. And you need business agreements, I guess, huh?
You do. Yeah. You do. Yeah.
Dani, please, first of all, thank you so much. You'll be recording on this late Thursday night.
Of course.
Please tell the people where they can find you. Tell the people where they can get the app. I don't know who's at my door. Apologies. But go ahead and let people know.
Somebody ringing your bell, girl?
That was somebody ring my bell. Go ahead.
No.
So you can find me on Instagram at Conveaux, CONVEAUX, or my personal page. I don't mind people following, Dani _BEAUX _. And I use a lot of the French ending because I found out my last name has some historical background from France. So I just started using the French ending both for my business and for my last name on Instagram. So you can find me there. Conveaux's website is www.moreconvo.com because a lot of people, every time they come to a Conveaux event, they want more. So you go to moreconvo.com to keep up with our next events, to keep up with our newest things coming out. Like our TV show that we are promoting now, that's coming. We're casting. And if you guys know any men, or men, if you're out there, you have until tomorrow. I'm sorry, until tomorrow to email casting@theconvoshow.com. So you have then, and we'll be filming the show to match people. No process of elimination. We're not doing that. We're doing alignment is the assignment, and getting people the self-worth that they need to be better for themselves and be better for someone else. That's what Convo is all about. What we have coming up next, like I told you, we do our therapeutic events. So we have one coming up in October, a partnership with Harlem Haberdashery, Take Care of Harlem. And we're going to do a mixer, again, to get people together and socializing and meeting new people and learning something about themselves. After that, if you stay on the website and subscribe, you can see what we have coming up, some surprises in February. More of the business of marriage type conversations is going to be coming. That's about it.
Girl, after all that, that's about it.
Oh, and get combo cards. I have 4 marriages out of combo cards. So
what's combo cards?
So combo cards is a card game that I created for these topics and questions that we wait too late to talk about. And I decided, let's just make some cards from all of the topics that happen at Convo events, so that when people meet people and they go on these dates, this is an activity that can get them a better idea of if they should even move forward past that date. So I had several people take Convo cards on their dates. I had people who were already together play Convo cards in their house, at their girls' nights, at their games night, and ended up with 4 marriages because of
Yes.
2 met through Convo, and the other 2 were already together and decided to take the next step.
I did not.
Well, let me go ahead to Convo then.
Get in the conversation.
Why don't you come through in I'm gonna come through in a full gown. Like, hello.
Ready.
Anyway, Dani, thank you so much. You're so appreciated. I wish you nothing but honesty and abundance.
Thank you.
And love and joy in your upcoming marriage and in your relationship. And I hope to stay in touch. And we'll make sure, if you can send us the email with some photos and all the links to all of your things, we'll make sure it's in the episode description. So folks can check you out.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, keep your browser open.
I will.
All right. Child, the business of marriage.
The business of marriage.
Giving us the bee's knees. Them combo cards, I don't know. You might still be sizing people up. Like, hi, let's have a conversation around debt.
But what's wrong with sizing people up? You're doing it anyway.
Oh, no. I just be wanting to fall into things naturally, you know?
No.
That's why I be falling and busting my ass. I fell.
Ever Libra.
All right, well, we'll be back next week, everybody. And with that, we are out.